Good afternoon, everyone in San Francisco and online on Twitch. My name is Dennis, and today we're going to talk about monetization for your mobile app using ads. So we're going to talk about the areas of making money. So the premium versus the freemium model. We're going to talk about ways to monetize your freemium model, overview of ad-driven monetization, kind of the focus. So we'll talk about all the areas to make money, but we'll focus on ad-driven. Hopefully you see some value in there. And then we'll talk a little bit about Amazon ads, and we'll show you some demonstration of what those ads look like through an app, and we'll show you like static ads, we'll show you some video ads, some incentive ads, so you kind of get an idea of what those look like. And then throughout the talk, if you have any questions or want to discuss anything, feel free to interrupt. Okay, so can you guys see that? Okay, so freemium model, I think most of you should be familiar with freemium versus premium, so I'll go over it real quick. Premium is you have the app in the App Store, and it's for sale for a price, 99 cents, $1.99, $2.99. The original days of the App Store, you could sell the app and make a ton of money, 99 cents or $1, depending on your value or what you wanted to sell it for. And it was new, since the App Store was new, so you'd make a ton of money. And then became like, okay, we have thousands of apps in the App Store, a lot of competition, and then the freemium model came in, which was I could download it for free as a user because I don't want to pay, because I want to try it out, use it, and then if I wanted, use more features, I could do an in-app purchase, I could do other things. But as a mobile developer, that's kind of the approach now, is the freemium model, and give it away free, get all the users onto the site or onto the app, and then you can monetize different ways, and we'll talk about the ways to monetize that. But that's the freemium model, where you see a lot of the games where users won't want to pay for that premium price. Those apps that can get away with premium prices are a premium brand, or for a fact, like Adobe has Lightroom or a couple other applications that we know there's a brand, we know there's value there, so we're going to pay $2.99, $3.99. Or there's a remote control app, or that we know of, or we've heard from friends that this app is great, and we're just going to go ahead and buy it because it's premium. And typically with the premium, there's no ads, there's no advertising, and there may be even additional in-app purchases, but typically you just pay for it as a user, and then you make the money as a developer, and then you continue to build off the app. And I'll talk about some of the advantages and disadvantages as we go along. Okay, so freemium app, this is a little model of description of like free download, a few features, and then these little locks are just ways to unlock more features for those users and be able to incentivize and have them pay up, so the developer will continue to iterate the app and continue to make money. So the premium app, and by the way, probably at the end of this, you're going to have more questions than you started with, I hope, in a way, because there's going to be so many areas of making money in different ways, different approaches right now. It's crazy, but it's exciting at the same time when we talk about the videos. So it's nice to see the approach to try to figure out, because that's where a lot of developers, a lot of startups will start out, like try to figure out like days and days to figure out what that model might be, because if you mess it up, it could be your only chance, right? So the premium is pay and download, and then you have multiple features. And again, some cases where you have a premium, you could sell it for $1.99, and then those users have paid up, but there's no incentive as a developer sometimes to keep iterating that app, because you just need to get them to download the app and use it, and we got them, right? So with the freemium, there's incentive to you kind of iterate, add more features, and try to allow those users to, in-app purchase or make purchases and enhance the app, and then make even more money. And talk about some of the new approaches to in-app purchase and subscriptions, if anybody is using those. So the freemium model, the base monetization way of developing is download it for free, and then it's ad-driven typically. So you have ads in there displayed, video incentive ads, or you do an in-app purchase or subscription, which we'll talk about. So ways to monetize freemium. That's out of order. In-app purchases and subscriptions. Anybody do in-app purchases right now in their app? You do? Okay, so there's a few. So in-app purchases is basically you download it free, you have a freemium model, and then you probably all have made purchases within the game. So like Fortnite, I download the game for free, I can play it. There's no advertising, which is pretty rare. That's one of the different approaches, right? For games, usually it's like massive ads and videos as you're playing the game because the developers have to make money somehow. So ads is one way to do that. And the other one is in-app purchases. So if in Fortnite, there's no ads, but what they do is they sell these suits or they sell certain features in there. And you can buy this cool suit and this outfit that doesn't really help you in the game, but you look really cool. And you buy it for 19 bucks or 10 bucks, whatever, and that's real currency, but then they call it certain bucks or certain coins that you purchase with real money, and then you could buy these intangible suits, and that's where they make all their money. And another example was Pokemon Go is another game that has the approach where they have more of an incentive to buy up or pay up, because you're playing the game and you can't get any further until you actually buy more Pokeballs or more incense or whatever it might be. That's why I really like Fortnite. Their approach is like they're not trying to make you struggle through the game because everybody has an equal playing field, but yet they're just trying to like make it cool to purchase these and make a ton of money. Whereas the Pokemon approach is different, and it's a lot of game developers are doing this where they're just the struggle, make you suffer just enough, and then paying up will make you successful in that game and give you more status. So that's kind of the approach now, which is too bad because my kid downloads the games and sees a ton of ads, and then it's like, okay, you got to pay up, and otherwise you're just sitting there. And then you probably have seen the approach where a game comes up and you're playing it, and there may be an ad, or you have to wait 6 hours to play the next stage. Have you guys ever seen that? That's another one that's called the frustration model, where these game developers will set up and go, okay, here you play the game, but you got to wait 6 hours. But if you don't want to wait 6 hours, you buy up. So in-app purchase, a subscription, or view this video. And in some cases, we'll be playing a game, and then you got to wait 6 hours, or you can watch this incentive video, and I'll show you what those videos look like. And those videos will come up, play it for 30 seconds, and I get 100 coins, or I can immediately start playing again. So my son would be playing a game, it'd be like all of a sudden you just hear this like shoot 'em up stuff, and all of a sudden, boop, you hear an ad. It's like, but that's weird, like an advertising come up. And I was like, what are you doing? It's like, oh, I ran out of time, I need to play again. So he just watches these ads. So he's continuously watching these videos. And we'll talk about like impressions and views and stuff, and how the value can be increased with those, because the videos pay more than like the static, banners. And then you're opting in. So the user's saying, yeah, great. And I did the same thing with a poker app. So I was I'm not a very good poker player, so I was playing poker, and then I ran out of money, and I'm like, oh no, what do I do? So I don't want to pay real money, but I was willing to watch a video for 30 seconds while I'm sitting around on board on the airport. And so I watch a video for 30 seconds, and I get another 1,000 coins, and I could play again for another hour or so. And it's like, oh, would you like to play? So you can see how it's like not really frustrating, but it's like, okay, I can get a little bit further. Or you can make that in-app purchase and buy 10,000 coins for 99 cents or 20,000 coins for this much. So you see all these different ways to make money with the in-app purchases. And then the subscription piece is a new one where developers are setting up like a subscription base so you could pay 99 cents a month, and it's recurring. So it's a nice recurring revenue for those developers to come in and say 99 cents. The games, not so much makes sense, but there's a lot of like subscriptions for like media and newspapers. You could set up a subscription. I think some like Spotify, a couple other of the music streaming apps do this, where you have the streaming service at $9.99 or $7.99, and you can make that purchase right there in the app, and then you're good for a year or good for a month, whatever it might be. And it's nice because a lot of users, when they set up subscriptions, they forget about it. And the 99 cents, like, oh, I want this, but you have to pay up 99 cents, and you forget about it. So sometimes that's great for a developer. And then you have this recurring revenue to come in and incentive to keep iterating through and making more features, right? So that's another good way to make money. Does that make sense? In-app purchases, and then you could do that through the Google Play Store or the Apple Store, and they provide mechanisms for that. Okay, advertising. So we got, let's pull up the numbers real quick. These are big businesses. As you know, some of the big games out there, like we talked about Fortnite, Pokemon, all those games, those are free downloads, so those are freemium model, making a ton of money based on in-app purchases, subscriptions, and then in Pokemon, in their case, it's the frustration model where you have to pay up to get it further. And with the Fortnite, it's more like I want to be cool and have a status with cool clothes. Yeah. For non-gaming apps? Same thing. Non-gaming apps is just different. Depends on the use case. The gaming side of it is the most popular, right? Because you want to play a game for free, and you got to and it costs a lot of money to build these games. So what we typically see is in like a business app or a subscription, we would see like maybe you do a field rep app that allows your field representatives to like, upload things to the server and do things in file share. Then you could do a subscription base. Like we talked about yesterday, doing a photo sharing app, create a photo sharing app where the users can upload and you have a quota. You can have them pay a subscription to upload, 10 megs a day or 10 megs a month for $5. And you could do it that route. So instead of doing an in-app purchase at one time, you could have a subscription so that as long as they keep recurring, they can get there. And then with the photo sharing app, if they don't renew the subscription, they lose their photos in some cases. So that's kind of a tough one too, because then you're like, oh wait. And so as a user, kind of get them stuck in there, or they can extract their audio and or their video files if they wanted to. But the idea is, as a developer, you can make money off of that, and then you're selling the quota for those users to upload into the app. So this is big business we're talking about. Okay, so the advantages of freemium: you get more downloads. Just straight up, you get more downloads because nobody is worried about paying for anything. So let's just download and try it out. And a new thing that the app stores have added is that the trial periods, 30-day trial periods or 2 weeks, and then it'll automatically start up that subscription or a purchase. Multiple monetization strategies. So if you're a premium and you sell it for $2.99, it's kind of hard to put ads. If you sell a premium app and you're selling it for $2.99, don't put ads in it. That's totally wrong. But some developers have done that. But there's less ways to make money when you have a premium app and you're selling it for $2.99, because you can't just go like, okay, wait, give you these features and then like we could do in-app purchases. It sometimes just doesn't make sense. Lower user expectations. So this is going to be obviously a disadvantage for premium because they're going to be the expectation. And this is a big deal. Lower user expectation. It's free. I can download it. Okay. And there's less expectation of the developer to have, if the app crashes, it's free. I haven't paid anything. Positive reviews in the App Store are more likely than the paid ones. Again, ties into number 3, because those users are just like, if they pay 99 cents, they want everything in that app. They want it to work well. They want it to be perfect. Everything's got to be great. I paid 99 cents. I want this thing to work great. But if they haven't paid anything, they're kind of like, okay, it crashes once or twice. It's kind of a fun game. I'll keep playing it. So those are the advantages of freemium model. Now, the disadvantages, there's no guaranteed revenue, right? So we're talking about ads. So let's say the ad scenario where we have advertising for videos and banners, and we just have a typical game app. So if we've spent thousands of dollars to develop this game, we release on the App Store, we have all these ads displayed, videos and banners. It takes a lot of users. There's a certain point where you're starting to break even. So you'd have to have tens of thousands of users using it daily basis to be able to make up for the cost of developing that app and continue to develop. So that's what happens with a lot of the games and the apps out there, is there's no guaranteed revenue. So if you're not doing in-app purchases or anything else, or incentivizing those users to pay up, then there's no guarantee and you could just shut down. And again, remember, it could tie into the services too. So if you're using EC2 services or using any of the AWS services, you could be paying a bill and then you're seeing just a little bit of trickle in for ads. So for example, I did an app for the Olympics. So I did a Summer Olympics ad where we had users can subscribe to an event or a country, and then I had real-time results. So they would get push notifications like if Usain Bolt won the 100-meter dash. And I had about 30,000 users, and it was all ad-driven, totally free. They could download it, and then they can in-app purchase if they wanted to, if they wanted more subscriptions in like 3 countries or 3 events. So if they wanted all the events, they can in-app purchase. But the other free model was just let them do the 3, and then it was ad-driven. So I had it was 18 days, I think the Olympics were, and then. But 30,000 users isn't going to cut it because you're not going to make that much money. But in this case, I had real-time push notifications set up, and about 20,000 users were activating or using the app per day, which is a high number for a typical app because this was an event-driven app, and then so they were getting push notifications 3 to 4 times a day. So I was getting a lot of sessions and views. So I was making about $45 a day in ads for 30,000 users, which is super rare because 30,000 users equates to more like a few hundred users per day, that are using it on an active basis. But since this was an 18-day period and everybody was getting push notifications, every time they click on push notification, they'd see the results and then an ad would pop up. And if they were looking at the record count or the medal count, they would see more ads. So there is a way to do it if you have a lot of user base. That's why a lot of these apps will continuously, hey, try more, do more, open the app, use the sessions. The more you use it, the more they're going to make, because the more ads are going to be impressed on those users. The other disadvantage, number 2, ads distract users' frustration. So there's like a balance, right? Everybody's seen this apps where the ads just come up, and if my kid's playing an app and I see the ads come up like seriously every 5 minutes, I'm just like, I'm done. I want to just delete the app because I'm so tired of it. But that's where the incentive ads have come in, where you're playing a little bit. It's like, yeah, I'll play this video for 30 seconds to get a little bit further in the game. But it's the ones where, and I'll show you the video of what it looks like. You're playing, and all of a sudden, you just enter and you shoot somebody, and then all of a sudden it goes to another stage, and then bam, an ad comes up automatically. You can't do anything for 30 seconds, and you have to exit out. And then they keep doing it more and more. And this is where you can do this, but if you do it right away when the user's first day and they're playing the app and then the ads come in, this is where we want to start collecting analytics. And you heard about this morning is like the more you collect about those users, you could start this setup number 2 and wait maybe 1 or 2 days, or maybe wait till they have like 10 sessions or more, or maybe they wait till they're doing something and they've made it to a certain level, then start the ads. Sort of gradually in, because what happens is they just you start the app and everybody gets these ads and it just keeps coming in, and then it's like, okay, I'm going to delete this app. But if you were to gradually introduce that, or even better, address those ads specifically to those users, so those ones that are in there all the time, maybe reduce the ads for every time they come in, so maybe instead of like 27 ads per that day, maybe 12 or 13. So you can kind of figure out who your power users are. So it's really important to collect analytics and know exactly what you're doing and what your users are seeing. So high engagement required to generate revenue. Again, you need thousands of users to be able to generate enough revenue based on just ads alone to make any money. So that's why you can do ads. A lot of common freemium model is also you have ads in your app, and then you can have an in-app purchase to remove the ads. It's a very common practice. You do 99 cents. And there's been a few apps recently that I saw in there that have ads, and then the user, there's a bunch of user complaints, and the user says, I love this app, I can't stand the ads, but I don't even have a way to remove ads. So they're looking for a way to purchase and remove ads. And it's funny because, so let's say it's let's say you have an ad-driven app, and you have thousands of users, and then you sell, let's say, an in-app purchase to remove ads for 99 cents. That's another thing to think about. It's like, wait, so if I sell it for 99 cents and then that user's coming in daily, like over and over and over, at what point does the 99 cents override the amount I'm going to make from advertising for that user? So that's where you have to figure out, look at the analytics and go, ooh, ooh, yep, right there. So maybe 99 cents, is it worth it? Maybe it's $1.99. Or maybe some other incentive that you can offer that user so they're not so frustrated, you make money and everybody's happy. So there's kind of a fun balance where, the business try to figure out exactly what to do. It's kind of fun. Okay, ways to monetize your app. So premium priced app, again, those are like the ones, the branding, the ones specific, the ones have a specific use case, or maybe even uniqueness. So if you have a unique app that's you're the only app doing that, you can actually maybe get away with it for a few months until you get somebody clones your app. It's a big issue with you being the only app out there that does something, it's going to get cloned. So think about that. Some really great feature. Have some kind of fallback mechanism, because if you're going to be the only one, I guarantee you there's groups out there, huge groups out there, developers saying, okay, we like this app, this is really popular. You've seen it all over the place, and they'll just clone that application. So premium priced app, if you're a unique app or you're a brand or you're business to business, you can offer that premium priced app. And in-app purchases, again, really a great way to go if you want to offer intangible, tangible items, whatever they might be, incentivize those users to upgrade. And a lot of use cases are feature-based. So remember the freemium model, we have like a few features here and there, okay, great, and you get them to a certain point, and then if you want like a certain brush or a certain color or anything, 99 cents for this, this, and this, or a filter, you're doing a photo app and there you want a filter, and it's like, oh, this is a great filter, it's going to cost you 99 cents. You can still use the app, but it's like, okay, great, I'll pay 99 cents. And I've done that before where it's like, okay, I could do this. Or you want to save in high res, or you want to save, I just downloaded another app that does video with text on there, and it would show the text right when I was recording the video, but it put a watermark on there. So it's like, okay, great. Or you can pay up to remove the watermark, or they just say, okay, everything's beautiful, but it's low res. So 480p and I want 720p, and then you got to pay up. So there's all these different ways to think about it. And then, like I said, if you make a mistake and you start like, okay, this is 720p, and then if you have to make in-app purchases, there's a lot of things to think about where you could actually lose that user if you restrict it too much. So you want to be able to allow the users to use the app and be successful without actually making those purchases. And rewarded videos, those are the fun ones. That's the one I talked about where we're playing a game, like I was playing the poker game, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm out of money, and it's like, I have nothing else to do, right? And so I wanted to play more, and it says, do you want to play this video for 30 seconds? Yes, sure. Comes up, and I'll show you exactly what that looks like, and then it comes back and it gives you 10,000 coins. It doesn't give you real money, but it gives you coins that you can continue playing the game. So that's kind of a cool way, because you're like, yep, I've watched, I said, okay, I want to watch this video, and that's totally fine, versus that other approach where I'm playing the game and at the end of the stage, and all of a sudden this ad comes up, and it's like, no, I don't want to see this ad, and then, or the volume goes up. It's irritating. So the rewarded videos are really cool, and that's provided by the ad advertising that you incorporate with the SDK. Any questions about those? Any other ways to make money that I'm not thinking about? You guys? Okay. Okay. So I'm going to do an overview of who you do mobile ads? Who do you go through?
I'm actually doing display ads.
Uh-huh. Oh, on like a website?
Yeah.
Okay. So interstitial ad banners, some of you have seen these before. I mean, there's all, but I don't want to sneak, I didn't want to show you that video yet. So interstitial and ad banners, these are the ones that come up, they pop up full screen, or they're banners across the top or bottom. There's a few apps out there, the nightstand app. Do you guys, anybody use a nightstand app that doesn't dim the screen? It sort of gives you a nice little glow. It was brilliant, because I didn't think about this, but you get paid for impressions, which I'll talk about as those ads come up. And there's a nighttime bedtime app that you have by your bedside, and it has like a little glow or stars or something, and then the ads pop up at the bottom. So imagine for 8 hours, I never get 8 hours sleep. I know, this is exciting, huh? I was like, oh, this is so cool. So the app, you just download the app, and then you have like these nice stars or little sound clips, and you're sleeping, and constantly these ads are being displayed for 8 hours. You can imagine that tens of thousands of users using this app to have this cool feature, and these ads are being shown. You're not seeing it because your eyelids are closed, right? So, but they're making money because they're getting thousands of impressions because you're sleeping and you have this app open for hours a night. It's awesome. And the other one with the sleep apps, the ones that track your sleep, you put it on the pillow. I thought that was the dumbest idea. But then there was 2 or 3 at one time. They were making a ton of money, and they were top downloads in the App Store, in-app purchases. We'll track your sleep habits, but you have to do an in-app purchase or a subscription if you want to see the report. I was like, wait, what? And they were making money off of that. And that was just a simple, all it does was tracking movement and heart rate and stuff, just a real simple process. But they were making money off of that. So skippable video, this is the one where you could skip the video. It'll come up, and then you could close it out. It'll come up in between a session, and then those are the ones that are the more bothersome. The rewarded videos, those are the fun, where it's the same video, but you're saying, yes, I'll allow this and play it, and then I get rewarded for it. And then a native ad, so it would be a native full screen ad, or something within a view controller where you would see a different cells. You would see the ads just kind of show up in there. And those are kind of fun. You've seen those like on websites like CNN, so you're drilling down, you're like first story, second story, third story, all of a sudden like, wait, what? This isn't a story, this is an ad. So you see a lot of that more now, because instead people are ignoring these ads and these ad banners, so they're being really creative about these apps where you could do the news story. And then Amazon Ads and a few other ad providers will allow you to put the ad within there to make it look in the same height as a cell level as you're reading the article. So you'll be able to see that as you view through, like every fourth one maybe show an ad versus having it down at the bottom or the top. Another strategy was kind of fun. I remember last year sometime I was playing a game, and they were putting the ads on the top or bottom, but there was a button just above the banner. And so every time you try to hit the banner, about 1 out of every 10 attempts to hit this button, you would hit the banner and view the ad. It was awesome. I was like, ugh. But then I kept playing the game. I was like, oh, and then I was just like, it was one of those things where like this isn't right. This isn't right. But it was fun. It makes you laugh because you're like, it's just a way to make money. You know they did it on purpose because it's like this button just below it. It's pretty amazing what people will go through. Okay, so this right here is the interstitial ad. So somebody's playing a game, and let me see. Hopefully it'll play. I guess I didn't. And then game over. Then watch the ad. And then you can play again. So that's one of the ones where you'll come up and you'll play something, the kind of irritating ones where you could exit out after 15 seconds, whatever it might be, and then an ad comes up, and then sometimes you can exit out. See, you can't exit out here, and then eventually there'll be a little X on the upper right or upper left. And again, sometimes they'll put the X in a spot where it's like the same color X as the background. Again, sketchy, don't do it. But and these are provided by the SDK, the ad provider, that you say, I want to show ads at this time, and then the SDK goes back and says, okay, has control of what ad is displayed, and then you can decide to show an ad every 5 minutes or every 5 days or whatever it might be. So that's just a regular interstitial ad. And then I'll talk about next, we'll talk about like impressions and how to make actual money from that. And then this one is incentive video. So wait for, let's say it was like something about credits. We'll watch this. And this is an advertising for a game. So if you were to click on this, it would take you to the App Store so you could download this specific game. So like, oh, this sounds cool. I really like it. You can accidentally click it. And see how it's sort of covering your app, but not really. And then great. All right, you can exit out. See the X or redo it. I want to see this video again for some reason. I don't know why you would, but and you could hit X out. And then let me play that again. So this was an incentive, so you could see that right here. So I could watch this for 10,000 AWS credits, and then I enter that, and then as soon as that 30-second video plays, it'll come back, and then you go in there, and a callback will say, okay, this person viewed this video, here's 10,000 credits, and that's how it works. And this is, when I would talk about this is called an impression, and then if they were to click, they would be a click-through, and you get paid even more. So you get paid per views, and you get paid for click-throughs, and then the other piece you'll get paid for if you make a purchase or actually download it. So, and that's what we'll talk about next. Any questions about that? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the question was with the nightstand app we were talking about, and the ads are constantly viewing and you're asleep. So that's the piece we'll talk about with the impressions. So with an app, they don't know, the advertisers don't know you're actually looking at it, right? So you could have it up there, and then advertising could be flowing through, or you could have a website up and you see the ads kind of cycle through. It doesn't necessarily mean you're seeing them, but that's considered an impression. So every time an ad, I say as a developer, I say I want to show an ad, and the ad pops up, that's an impression. Shows up again, that's another impression. And then you multiply that times the number of users times the number of sessions. Right. Yeah. I wasn't taking advantage of it, but and was the app taking advantage of those users or the advertisers? I mean, maybe, but I mean, it wasn't the idea. Is like to offer a service that, okay, these ads pop up and this is great, but the advertisers may not know or understand, like, okay, that nobody's actually looking at this. So yeah, it's interesting question. But so ad revenue models. So we're talking about this now, where we're talking about making money and what that means. So ad networks will pay you and provide these ads so that you can show them to your users. Okay, it's very simple. To put in the ad, and then ad view or impression, and then ad click and conversion. Those are 3 ways to make money. So as a developer, I say, okay, I want to do this ad provider like Amazon Ads or Chartboost or whatever it might be, and I say, okay, I'm going to use their SDK, and then I want to show an ad every so often. And it's up to you to show the ads wherever you want, whenever you want. And you use their SDK and you just say, I want to show ads, and they provide callbacks and everything else. And so for impressions, every time I show an ad, then that ad provider pays me a percentage or a small amount of money per like 10,000 clicks. So it's not like you get a penny for every click, but every 10,000 you get a certain amount of pennies. And then if that user clicks on the ad, that's where you make even more money. So you make very little money with impressions, takes a ton of users, And then if a user clicks on the ad, then you make even more money. So you've made the impression plus a click. Then the conversion, let's say it's a purchase. Let's say it's an ad of a boot on Amazon.com, right? And then as soon as that ad comes up and there's a boot and I say, oh, great, I want to buy this for my wife. You click on the ad, you make that purchase, that's conversion. That's where the big money comes in. Also, conversions could be to other apps or other downloads that users will pay for that conversion. And basically converting, I saw the ad impression, I clicked on it, and I did something and took action, full cycle of it. And so you could track that information. Does that make sense? And then you get paid a ton of money. So revenue, how it works, the KPIs, equals the revenue per ad, which is ECPM, times the fill rate, the number of ads. So the fill rate, I don't know if I talk about revenue per 1,000 ads shown. Fill rate is the number of ads shown versus over the number of ads requested. So fill rate, you'll see it come up if you're ever doing the ads. So if I have an ad provider like Amazon Ads or any other ad provider, I use their SDK, right? And I decide how many ads I want to show. So if I want to show like 20 ads for that one user throughout the day, I say request an ad and it shows up and the ad shows up. But what happens is these advertisers are also paid by these companies, right? The advertisers, the companies that want to display their ads to those providers. And there may not be enough ads in that area, or they want to cut up the number of users who have seen those ads, or maybe they only want to show those ads to specific regions. So in a lot of cases, or some cases, as a developer, I'll show the ad, I want to show the ad, and in some cases they'll never even see it because of that reason, because they've maxed out those number of ads or the region, whatever it might be. So that's a fill rate. So if you have 100% fill rate, means I've requested 10 or 20, let's say 20 ads to be displayed, and 20 were displayed by the advertiser. Whether they're the same ad 20 times or 20 different ads, it doesn't matter to me. But if half of those are displayed, so in other words, nothing comes up for those 20, then we have a 50% fill rate. Does that make sense? Because fill rate's a big deal, because if you're a global app and you have different countries, let's say some of the countries like China. So the network is a little bit different in China. If you've heard the wall, and some advertising links could be blocked. So in some cases, you could have thousands of users in China, but they may not see your ad at all. So this is where you want to start tracking analytics. So you could say that those users in China, I'm offering 20 ads per day. So all of a sudden I have this ad pulled up, but then I have no fill rate, which is like, okay, what's going on? So either the ad provider is not providing in that country, or they're blocking it through some kind of firewall, maybe in their networks. So in other words, I have all these users that are using all my AWS resources, but they may not see those ads, so I may not get paid for it. And that's a big deal. It depends on what country, what region, what provider. So that's where we talk about, I want to get a different provider, or you had multiple providers in an app that you could have like different SDKs. So like, let's say Chartboost is really good in the European countries, but not so good in the US. And so you'd want to like switch it out depending on where your users are. Again, you don't know where your users are coming from until you start collecting analytics. Does that make sense? That's where the fill rate does come in. So you start collecting, and then another thing about the analytics is you can go to their API, the provider, the ad provider, and say, okay, they tell you how many click-throughs, how many ads were displayed, and what's the fill rate. They'll tell you what the fill rate is. But you also want to be able to track that on your own through the app as well. So every time you say, I want to display an ad, then did the app display, or did the ad display or not? So you retrack your own fill rate so you could figure out where those fill rates are go. And imagine that whole block, you can say, okay, fill rates are 100% in this country, or 80% in this country, or with this type of app or this type of region, it might be different. So the more fill rate, the more money you make, right? Because every time you want to show an ad, it's filled by some provider. So a lot of times what developers will do is set up multiple ad providers, aggregators, that aggregate with different providers, so they have a ton of resources to pull from and different ads to pull in. And then you just say, show an ad. And if it doesn't show, then you immediately pick the other provider in their SDK and start showing the ad. Does that make sense? Okay. The other thing to note is about advertising and ads, offline, it comes up a lot. So there's a lot of apps that you download. So I travel with my son every once in a while. Sometimes I take him to the loft, and I took him to New York last year. And about half of his games that he has on his iPad won't work, period, offline. You know a reason why? Anybody know why an app wouldn't work offline? It's a bad experience for one, so never do it. But the reason why these apps are not working is because they have an obligation to their advertisers. They need to make money. And if you're playing an offline game and it's a freemium model and it's ad driven, but you're offline, there's no way they're not making money. So why allow you to play this game for free when I'm not making any money and those ads aren't coming up on airplane mode, right? So what do? Well, there's an option, and that's what some of these developers should be doing always, is you can cache these ads. So what you do is throughout the day, or the first session of the day for that user, you cache, as a developer, you cache like 10 or 15 or 20, how many ever you're gonna display for that day. There's a certain limit. And then you cache it, and then it still works because they're offline, and those ads will still come up. And if they're offline for days, then that's a different issue. Then that's another problem you have to deal with. But the idea is when they come back online, all those stats will come back and say, I was on a plane for 4.5 hours on the way to New York, and this kid saw like 27 ads during that time. And it was all offline, but it's all tracked and cached in there, so the SDK will eventually come online and send that information in there as if he was online and sending it bit by bit. So that's a very valuable tip, and I didn't know this when I was doing it because I was doing ads and I didn't know I could cache them, and so it's very valuable for a lot of those devices that are offline. And a lot of those devices in different countries, they're not always connected, or like an iPad that's at home may not always be connected to Wi-Fi. So there's a good way to to provide those ads. Now, it's a different case if somebody downloads your app and then is never online. Again, that's a different use case. But
How does the ad provider verifies if that ads is valid, if those ads
the cache one?
is cached?
Yeah, so how does the advertiser know it's been cached? So same thing where they allow the caching mechanism, and then they'll know that you viewed them just based on the viewership. So instead of sending okay, this is the view, sending it right back to the server, it does a caching. It says, okay, it's viewed, and then it just caches and sends a batch to the service, let them know.
Ad network has some, token mechanism inside of their API, so they could, because, the
Yeah.
developer can mimic it.
Oh yeah. So he's talking about tokens and how they keep track, and then their SDK just keeps track of it somehow, whatever way. They allow you to cache 10, maybe 20, depends on the provider, and then they determine, I'm using their SDK and I'm saying, okay, they showed an ad and then they saw this ad and then here it is. Or some of them might not want to do any caching at all, so it just depends on the provider. Yeah. So one of the options is Amazon Mobile Ad Network. So the Mobile Ads API is an in-app display advertising solution to monetize apps and games across platforms. And this is just one of many. There's several out there, several aggregators that are offering mobile ads. So when I talk about aggregators, so mobile ads are coming from different advertisers. So if you have an aggregator, they'll aggregate from different values, like AdMob is another good example, where they're taking different advertisers from different areas, so they'll have the most successful fill rate for those developers. So they'll come in and provide these ads, and then if there's no fill rate in this certain region, they'll work with other advertisers so that you're using kind of one SDK. Because it's nice to have just single dependency with the SDK, and then you can use that one SDK and then not worry about it. Again, tracking analytics is really great because you'll know exactly, and then you can kind of reinforce that when you use the API to figure out how much you pay. And then the question comes up well, how much do I get paid per ad? And that all depends on the advertiser and what type of ads are displayed. Like the video ads are a lot more, and you could go to each provider, you could pull up and it'll tell you a little bit of per 10,000 how much you're going to get for impressions, and then click-throughs, and then all that cycle through. So there's another approach that's coming out, and it may be out there for a few of the providers, but the dynamic pricing piece and localization of those ads. And this is really exciting for both advertisers and developers, because what it's doing is sort of think about Amazon Marketplace. There's a marketplace for these ads. And so these advertisers are saying, okay, I have a campaign for this day or these 2 days in this region, in this area. And I'm willing to pay a bigger buck for these advertisers, for these videos. And at the same time, as a developer, I want to go in and I display, I get paid a certain amount for each click, right? It's static. But now, if we have this new marketplace that's coming in for dynamic pricing, I can go in and behind the scenes, the SDK is negotiating prices based on wherever that person is. So let's say I'm in the San Francisco area, based on the location, there may be more value in a certain video or a certain time of day to display those ads. And so as a developer, I'm making more money because those ads are worth 2 times or 5 times more if I display this ad within this region and within this time period. And that could be like dynamic pricing. We're talking about like minutes or hours. And so it's kind of fun because by then you're inside the app has to make decisions whether like, okay, I'm going to show 10 ads today, or maybe I'll show 8 ads, but I want to show 8 ads in consecutive order within those 2-hour periods. And that's, all determined by the SDK and the services. So that's going to be, you'll see that come up in the next year or so, where we'll have this nice dynamic environment where we'll be able to like make money and then optimize the price of those videos and ads. So it'd be nice to like actually make some real money when somebody sees those ads. And in that case, maybe in that area, you do that obnoxious ad that comes up at a video, and you make way more money just on that one ad, but just irritate them just for that 1 hour or the 2 hours, depending on where they are in that location. Does that make sense? Okay, so we got a few minutes. I'm going to show you kind of what it looks like inside one of the apps. So I downloaded, if you guys want to try it out here, under my GitHub account, I have an Amazon Mobile Ads Swift account. So if you go to the developers, Amazon, you can just the same account as you would use for Alexa or anything else. You can sign up and set up your bank account information, and then set up and download the SDK, and then set up payments. And that's pretty much it. There's a few steps in there. I have a workshop at reInvent that I'm going to actually walk through this whole process of setting it up. And then once you use the SDK, then you have an option of displaying these certain type of ads, and then that's pretty much it for running ads in this network. And there's also, let me show you Chart Boost real quick. And you see. So maximize conversation, dynamic interactive ads. And sometimes, have you seen an ad where you can actually interact with it? It was pretty cool. So iAds used to have that, where actually the car is zooming in, or like, where like a Candy Crush, you'd be able to see it and you can actually interact with the advertising, which is kind of fun. You're sitting there and, or, you're shooting something going across the screen. It's like if you hit it and say pow, and you win something even more. That's a real creative way, and that's what a lot of these ad providers are trying to get involved with, so that your users have a really kind of fun experience, but it's also they're getting the advertising as well. And there's another way, this isn't necessarily to make money, but some of these other advertisers are offering incentives like, so sharing of apps. So the best strategy is when you want to acquire more users, right? And in some cases, instead of an ad coming up that you're getting paid for, it's a shared model, so that you're advertising your ads. So anybody using Chart Boost, you can put your ad on there for your app, little banner in there, and you're not paying any money for it. And then other advertisers or other app developers are providing their banners. And then so every like 3 or 4, I'm showing a banner for some, maybe another game for another developer. And then they're doing the same thing for me. And so they're sort of being this aggregator, allowing you to acquire these users using the same SDK as if it was an ad. But then the app comes up and it's my app that they can click on and they can download it from the App Store. So it's kind of fun because it's not really monetization, but it's a way of Chart Boost like saying, hey, we're unique, and we're going to allow you to share and acquire new users by you advertising your app and then sharing their advertising your app and not paying any money. Sort of a a great marketplace where you're sharing services. So again, they have common stories, customer stories. This is a great one. You could download, say I'm a developer or an advertiser, and then download the SDK. So in here, I just downloaded the sample here. This is the Swift. It's a lot of it's Objective-C, but there's some samples in Swift as well. So I'm going to see and open this up. Amazon Ads. Samples. Ads samples. Oh, hold on, I just downloaded it, so you gotta do a pod install. CD. Let's see, I'll just do simple. So in here, I'll just open this one. Whoops, sorry. Let's see if this works. So they have this registration. So you have this app code, and then you set logging as a true, and basically so it'll log the information. So this goes to the there's nothing to do with AWS or anything at this point. It's just setting up a key with Amazon Ads, putting in there, and then developer Amazon.com to set it up. And then you set up logging true, and then you'll start logging their information, and then you also want to set up your own. And then inside the app itself, the view controller. So we have normal, okay, did warn, will transition, load Amazon ad, and then give it the rectangle. So this part right here is just an action. So they'll give you sample code. So what you'll do is say, I want to show an ad, and then you'll call this function, and then it'll set up so that if you're like, you want to do a banner, you want to do a video, you want to do how long, and then they specify a certain size that you want to do. And then if you rotate it, it'll do a landscape view of that ad as well. And again, every time you want to do show an ad, you load the Amazon ad. Again, you could show it every 5 seconds if you want. And then the more you show it, probably the less fill rate, because they'll realize, okay, you're showing it too many times. And again, there's restrictions on the number of ads to display from the advertisers as well. So like same thing, like if you anybody advertised with Facebook before? So if you go to Facebook and you want to advertise in there, you could pay $4 or 40 cents or whatever, and it'll tell you how many times, and it'll set all the demographics, and it'll advertise on Facebook. And then as soon as that number is reached for the day, you're done. So, and then if they were going to show ads, if Facebook was going to show ads on something else, they would show a different ad, and so their fill rates would fill up with all these other developers that are trying to advertise in there. So does that make sense? So there's ways to show the ads, but that fill rate is based on what advertisers are willing to show and how much they're willing to pay for those ads. Let's see if this is going to work. Probably not. Let's see here. Oh, so we're going to build this. I'll sign it real quick. And then bam. Let's see, I'm going to unlock my phone. Let's see if we can run it. And you're going to see the same thing as like the videos where we'll see, we've all seen the ads anyway, so it's not like I'm showing you anything you haven't seen before. But I just want to show you what the code looks like, because it's really just like another integration with a third party. And then it's just a simple idea of just showing these ads. Oh, I'll show you. Hold on, let me pull up QuickTime. And I'm going to show the phone here. There it is. So this is just a demo app, so you could just say, okay, load ad, and if I hit load, it'll go and say, okay, great. And so if I hit load ad and that ad didn't drop down, then that would be a missed fill rate. So again, each time I hit load, it goes to that function and says display this type of ad. Again, you can have all these different functions from video, incentive ads, whatever it is. The incentive ones are a little bit more complicated because there's like a callback, and then it has to go back to the SDK and say, yes, this user did see the video for 30 seconds, and confirm it, and the callback would say, okay, yes, they did view it, and then it's up to you to figure out how many tokens or where you want to, give those the reward to for that user. So there's a simple universal app, and then the same thing would be for video, and you could display it on the bottom, the top, whatever. And so right now that's an impression, and I don't know if I could actually click on it. So if I click on it, that's a click through. So I got paid for the impression, then I got paid for the click through. And then let's say if I actually made a purchase, it may be that third wave of getting paid as a developer for somebody who made that click and they linked through to some of the features. So that banner was more generic, but it could have been some kind of specific product that goes through. And that's what's nice about some of the app stores. It'll go all the way through, and then it'll track exactly what app developer passed this in and the information from that user. So you'll be able to track all that information from click-throughs all the way back to making that purchase or download. So, and one of the really cool features of the app interaction, and a lot of mobile developers don't do this, but like if this was an install for another app, if I clicked on this, like let's say I want to say I'm offering $5 in-app purchase, credit or something. on my app. They click on it, they install it, and then they download it. So they download and install it from the App Store. It should take them automatically to that area where I could apply that $5 credit. Very powerful stuff. You've seen it in some of the good apps out there, and that's really important to use that interaction. And it's available to you for using just the iOS and what is it called? Deep links. Anybody use deep links? So deep links are super powerful, where you could actually provide Apple as a store will provide this key, and then you could actually pull up a screen on your app and then apply that code that was all the way from the other app, passed through, and deep linked into the install of the new app. So really powerful stuff, so you can track all the way. And then again, as soon as that app launches up, I have that code, and I know exactly where that came from, my special code that has what app was advertising this, where it came from, what time, how they clicked through, and more details on that, so I know exactly how this whole campaign is working. So any questions about that, how that works? And yeah.
I have a question from the advertising point of view.
Mhm.
Like if I want to advertise through Amazon, how do I know how many devices have used SDK from Amazon ads? Do you have information like that?
So the question was, how many?
How do I know how, like for example, if I use Amazon ads,
Mhm.
how do I know how many customers can I potentially reach to that?
Oh yeah, so you're talking about from the advertiser side, right? Yeah, so from the advertiser side, the question was like, how do I know how many users, or what's the reach, right? What's the reach of users? And I haven't done the advertising part of it, but there's a separate link. So there's like developers and there's advertisers, like two separate pieces. So in there, they may tell you, okay, here's what your reach is, or here's what your demographics will be, and then you can specify a certain area. Like Facebook, for example, the same process. You can narrow it down to really fine tune. You could say, I want only females age 40 to 45 with a child. The child needs to be 4 to 5 years old and still in diapers. I was like, what? And then you can narrow it all the way down to really tight integration, say only show those ads to those type of people. Amazon Ads doesn't quite do that narrow part of it that I know of, but there's opportunity to really fine tune. And again, collect your information and figure out who your pro users are. And then if you want to advertise on a Facebook or the other ones, you can actually acquire those users. Now, this isn't monetizing, but this is about acquiring those users. But you're still collecting that data for those users. Yeah.
So on the flip side, right, so if you know your target audience, right,
Mhm.
can you also, for example, filter your advertising, right? For example, I want only, for example, ads that relates to, the cars, right, auto industry, right? I don't want anything to do with fashion, right? So only those ads I want to be displayed on my app.
Yeah, so the question was, as a developer, can I filter out what type of ads are displayed for those users? Absolutely. Yeah, to a certain extent. You know, it's like if come in, it's like, okay, I don't want to show questionable, or I don't want to show like women's clothing. It might be, a little bit more fine-tuned, but you could say I don't want to show anything that is, has something to do with gaming, or a NC-17 type game or video or something like that. And because this is addressed to children, so I want to make sure that I'm not showing high heel shoes for a game that's 4-year-olds are playing or 6-year-olds are playing. So yeah, you have control over some of that. In some cases, you might not. You might not be able to tell exactly what the video is. What would be cool is, like, I thought about this the other day, and maybe that's already in the case, but wouldn't it be cool if you had machine learning visual, like before that ad is about to display, like say, okay, this is the ad that's going to be displayed for this user, to be able to visually look at that ad and then just determine, just based off visualizing the ad, to show it or not, and say, okay, I'm going to skip this one because I'm not real happy about it, versus like setting up a filter. And that, again, a lot of those ad providers pride themselves on filtering all the way down to a certain level. Here's the demographics of the video, and try to only show these to these demographics. Yeah. And so some of them will be fine-tuned, some of them won't be. You won't be able to do it at all. And again, if you want more fill rate, maybe in some other countries, like the ads are kind of like, they're not real relevant to those users, but they're the only fill rate that you can get in those countries or that region. So it just depends on how much you want to put in there. And again, it's hard to figure out how many ads to put in and how many to show, and it's just up to you as a developer, and hopefully you're have a happy customer, and then you can make some money off of those ads, those users. So any questions for that? That's pretty much what I want to show you. Yeah.
So what about the security? So you are putting some advertisement in your application.
Huh?
So gets the advertisement like access some data of the application or some data of the user, or is it just displaying? So my point is that if you are displaying a third party and you are
Yeah. So the question was about security and like, personal data being sent back to these advertisers. And no, it's not the case. It's just basically saying, okay, in the device, they may show some like anonymous demographics for that in some cases, but they'll just say, okay, what kind of device it was and when it was shown and the type of ad ID or something that would be shown. But you're not doing like ad click where you think about, when I'm searching like on a website on Amazon and all of a sudden like, an hour later, all of a sudden it's showing me advertising for that product that I just searched. It's not like that at all. It'll be more like, okay, showed an ad, it has an ad ID, it's unique, and then sends it out. So every time you're clicking an ad, it's not, it may go to the advertiser there, but if you're just impressions, you're not going and sending data back to those advertisers at all. Yeah, it's just saying click through and there's some anonymous data to be able to track that. And so there's, for fraud protection, and that's about it. And then they tell you where there's click through. But you always want to be able to look at their API and then collect your own information about that, figure out, okay, I've showed this many ads. You want to make sure that that ad provider says that you were displaying this many ads, so you're in sync. Yeah, but you're not sending any personal data back to those advertisers. Yeah.
But still, we can develop some, mobile app, reviewing the user phone's data to find the matching ad to be displayed.
As a developer, what you're saying that you can collect analytics and display just the right ad? Yeah, I mean, if you have control over the ads, yeah. And again, if you have multiple ad providers, you know what type of ads maybe those providers were offering. Like maybe like Chartboost is more like game ads, So basically, they're paying you to display game ads in there. So when you click on it, it's going to go and download a new game. And maybe you want that more than anything, because if you have a business app, then games kind of maybe not real relevant, but you're getting more for it. So yeah, you can have a little bit of control and just determine what advertiser, what type of app you want, or what type of ad you want to be displayed on that. Yep. So you don't have fine-grained control over exactly what you want to show, but there's filters for every provider. So, okay, thanks. We'll take a few-minute break, and then we'll come back and start talking about messaging.